She thought she had just pulled off the perfect betrayal, until the judge read the truth. Betrayal. It slices deeper than any blade. And when it comes from the one you trust most, it can shake the ground beneath your feet. Tonight, I'll take you inside the story of a woman who believed she had outsmarted her husband, only to discover that every step of her plan had already been anticipated. What she thought would be the performance of a lifetime. The tearful lies. The courtroom confidence. The promise of millions was nothing more than a trap she walked straight into. Viewers, let me ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply, only to find out their love was nothing but a carefully written script? Have you ever looked at a person and realized that every smile, every gentle word, every embrace was just camouflage for a hidden agenda? What would you do if everything you had built, your fortune, your family, your very name, suddenly stood in jeopardy? Not from strangers, but from the one who shared your bed. Stay with me. Comment below with your thoughts. Subscribe, and prepare yourself for a story where love, greed, and justice collide. From the outside, Ethan Crawford's life looked untouchable. At 42, he had carved his name into the business world like a craftsman chiseling stone. Shopping complexes, real estate ventures, tech startups. His empire stretched across 3 states, each project stamped with his discipline, his vision, his refusal to accept failure. To friends, colleagues, and investors, Ethan was the man who seemed to hold the golden touch, and at his side stood Madeline Crawford, elegant, graceful, quick, with a smile that could light a room. She was the kind of woman people whispered about at charity galas. Together, they seemed like the perfect couple. He, the ambitious provider. She, the supportive partner who turned every public appearance into a portrait of love and stability. Their mansion outside Nashville echoed with parties, laughter, and admiration. Everyone believed Ethan and Madeline had it all, but perfection often hides the deepest cracks. That night, in a Denver hotel suite, Ethan sat alone at his desk, his laptop humming with the glow of quarterly reports. He loosened his tie, weary from another long day, convincing investors to back his newest project. A sprawling commercial development that could be worth hundreds of millions. Success had never come cheaply. And once again, he was paying in time away from home. As always, before he let exhaustion take him, he reached for his phone. No matter how busy, no matter where he traveled, one ritual remained unbroken. Calling Madeline, she answered on the second ring. Her voice warm, familiar, almost musical. Ethan. Perfect timing. She said, I just got home from dinner with Sarah. He smiled, leaning back in his leather chair. Did you two solve all the world's problems? Her laugh carried through the speaker, soft and affectionate. The very sound that had captured him years earlier at a Nashville fundraiser. She told him about casual gossip, about mutual friends, about nothing too important at all. And for a brief moment, Ethan let the weight of business slip from his shoulders. Madeline had a way of reminding him that there was more to life than deals and deadline. When he told her the meetings were going better than expected, her delight sounded genuine. I'm so proud of you, she said. When will you be back? Friday, he replied. Longer than I planned. But these investors move slow. I understand, she said sweetly. You miss me husband? That's all. The conversation drifted toward weekend plans. Simple things. What they would cook, who they might invite over, what movie they might finally sit down to watch. Then, as always, The goodbyes came. Ethan pressed the red button, set his phone on the desk, and let the silence settle. Only the silence didn't last. The screen still glowed. Call timer, still running. And then he heard it. Madeleina's voice again. Only this time, it was different. Stripped of warmth. Heavy with calculation. Victor, I already talked to my lawyer, she said, her tone sharp, businesslike. The divorce will be ready soon. He assured me I'll get 50% of Ethan's assets. I'll claim emotional abuse. The judge will believe me. The name hit Ethan like a hammer. Victor. Another voice followed. Smooth and confident. Then we can finally be together. Live the life we deserve. Ethan froze, gripping the arm of his chair until the leather creaked. Madeleine's reply slithered through the phone. It hasn't been easy pretending these years, but for us, I can do anything. He's worth over 400 million. Victor, half of it will be mine. Once the papers are filed, Tennessee law favors wives. He won't see it coming. 5 years of marriage. Reduced to theater. Every kiss. Every touch. Every tender word suddenly exposed as rehearsal for this very moment. Ethan's world didn't just crack that night. It shattered. Ethan Crawford sat frozen in that Denver hotel room, the phone still buzzing faintly in his hand. The weight of his wife's voice echoing in his ears. It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculation. Not a stolen kiss or a fleeting affair, but a blueprint. A long-planned heist drafted in the shadows of their marriage. For 5 years, while he built empires, she had been building lies. The realization crushed him. But in the same breath, it hardened him. This wasn't new to Ethan. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he had always prepared for the day someone might come for everything he had worked for. The memory came back sharp and uninvited, like an old scar split open. 10 years earlier, he had stood on the weathered porch of his uncle's farmhouse in Franklin. His Uncle James, once strong, proud, the kind of man who could build a barn with his own hands, sat, slumped in a wooden chair. Eyes hollow, his farm was gone. The machinery repossessed, the savings drained. Divorce had stripped him bare. They took it all. Ethan, his uncle, had whispered that evening, his voice breaking. 40 years of sweat, gone in months. Courts don't care how hard you worked. They don't care what you built. They only care about paper. Protect yourself before you give your heart. Otherwise, you'll end up like me, watching strangers carve up everything you bled for. That warning had branded itself into Ethan's soul. He had never forgotten. And when success began to crown him, when his name appeared on contracts and his ventures spread across state lines, he acted. With the quiet help of Harold Whitman, his trusted attorney, Ethan had placed his empire into an irrevocable trust. Companies, investment portfolios, real estate. Every major asset was sealed beyond reach of divorce courts. Madeleine thought she had been playing him. In truth, the stage had been set long before she ever entered his world. Now, sitting in that Denver suite, Ethan drew a steady breath. The pain was real. The betrayal burned like acid. But under it all, there was clarity. She believed the game belonged to her. She thought the courts, the laws, his own devotion would become her weapons. What she never understood was that Ethan Crawford had built his life on foresight. The empire was untouchable. Still, the betrayal needed more than quiet protection. It needed proof. It needed strategy. And it needed justice. Without finishing the reports on his desk, Ethan opened his laptop again, not for business, but for escape. He pulled up the airline portal and booked the earliest flight back to Nashville. He would not waste another hour in Denver. The deal could wait. His marriage was ash, but his fortune would not be sacrificed on its altar. By dawn the next morning, Ethan stepped off the plane with only a slim briefcase in hand. His mind was already moving 3 steps ahead. The Uber that carried him into the city blurred past streetlights and storefronts. He hardly noticed. His thoughts churned with every memory of Madeline. The way she had insisted on handling certain finances herself, the way she always asked about his work schedules, her sudden independence in matters that never seemed to matter before. Each detail snapped into place now, forming a picture he had been too blind or too trusting to see. When the car stopped in front of a brick building downtown, Ethan walked inside without hesitation. Harold Whitman was waiting. Harold had represented him for more than a decade, through acquisitions, disputes, and high-stakes negotiations worth millions. His dark suit was pressed, his silver hair combed neatly back, but today his eyes were sharper than usual. He didn't need an explanation. One look at Ethan told him everything. Ethan placed the phone on the desk and pressed play. Madeline's voice filled the office, cold and venomous. The divorce will be ready soon. I'll claim emotional abuse. I'll get 50%. Then Victor's smooth, confident reply. Then we can finally be together. Live the life we deserve. The recording played to the end. Silence weighed heavy when it finished. Harold leaned back. Finger steeple. His jaw set like stone. This isn't adultery, he said at last. This is conspiracy. Fraud. Deliberate and calculated. His hand went to the office phone, dialing without hesitation. Marcus, I need you here this morning. Ethan watched as Harold pulled open a drawer and retrieved a thick folder. Already waiting for a moment like this. Your wife doesn't know it, but your empire is beyond her reach. Harold continued. Every share, every deed, every account, it's locked down. What she thinks she's reaching for is little more than scraps. Ethan exhaled. The first breath of relief he had taken since the call. But relief wasn't enough. He wanted certainty. He wanted the truth about Victor Hale. The man whispering into his wife's ear. By the time Marcus Webb, Harold's trusted investigator, walked into the office, the plan was already in motion. Ethan handed him the phone. The recording, every detail he had overheard. Marcus's eyes narrowed, his mind already dissecting the puzzle. Give me 48 hours, Marcus said. If this man has a past, I'll find it. And if your wife has been playing this game longer than you think, I'll uncover that too. Ethan nodded, jaw tight. Doit. As Marcus left, Harold studied Ethan carefully. This will hurt. There's no easy way around that. But you've done what most men never think to do. You prepared. And now, instead of being the victim of her game, you'll be the one watching her play herself into a corner. Ethan rose, his expression steady. The heartbreak inside him had cooled into resolve. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about precision, strategy, patience. Madeline believed she was holding the knife. She had no idea. She was already standing in the trap Ethan had built years before. And soon, the man she called Victor Hale would learn that his con had finally reached its end. 2 days later, Ethan Crawford returned to Harold Whitman's office. The mahogany desk was littered with manila folders, photographs, and notes written in Marcus Webb's meticulous hand. Marcus had worked quickly, and what he uncovered pulled the last veil from Ethan's eyes. At the top of the file, was a photograph of the man Ethan's wife called Victor Hale. But beneath it, bold letters read a different name, Adrian Blackwell. Multiple aliases, dozens of forged identities. A con artist who had been running the same scheme for nearly a decade. Marcus's voice echoed in Ethan's memory as he read the notes. This man doesn't seduce women for pleasure. He recruits them, grooms them, plants them in the lives of wealthy men, then pulls the strings while they play devoted wives. Once the divorce is filed, the settlements funnel back to him through offshore accounts. He uses love like a weapon, and he discards his accomplices. Once the job is done, Ethan flipped through the first tab. Case 1. Florida. 2013. A young waitress named Vanessa Miller. She was introduced to a car dealership owner nearly 20 years older. Vidin Okten Mund. The marriage ended with claims of neglect. Settlement $2, $5 million. Within weeks, bank records showed the money routed through shell companies tied to Adrian Blackwell. Vanessa herself disappeared. Soon after, the second tab revealed another woman, Melissa Grant. Houston. 2016. Once a receptionist at a small law office, she was spotted at a networking event. Adrian groomed her, boosted her confidence, and placed her in the orbit of a wealthy developer. Lavish wedding. Quick divorce. $5 million transferred. Melissa never saw a dime beyond the initial payout. By the time she realized what had happened, the accounts were drained and Adrian was gone. The final tab hit hardest. Rachel Green. Charlotte. 2020. A single mother of two, working double shifts. Adrian had promised her a future of security and stability. She married a successful entrepreneur. Within months, divorce came right on cue. Settlement, $3, $8 million. 6 months later, she was abandoned, penniless, broken. The file noted a suicide attempt. She survived, but her life was in ruins. Ethan shut the folder, his chest heavy with rage. This wasn't romance. It wasn't even betrayal in the ordinary sense. It was a network of cons, carefully orchestrated and repeated across cities, across lives. His wife wasn't an unfortunate woman swept into another man's schemes. She was a participant, a willing accomplice, who had studied him, courted him, and built her marriage on lies. Marcus's notes left, no doubt. Madeline hadn't stumbled into Ethan's world by accident. She had been placed there, chosen, groomed, and now the very laugh that had once disarmed him at a gala, the touch that once gave him comfort after long days, the warmth that once felt like home, it all burned away under the harsh light of truth. Every smile was performance, every kiss, a scene rehearsed for the payday she believed was coming. For a long moment, Ethan sat in silence, staring at the evidence before him. His mind ran back through the last 5 years like a film reel. The carefully chosen words, the sudden interest in his travel schedules, the way she had always encouraged him to focus on work while she maintained her independence. It hadn't been love. It had been choreography. A performance directed by Adrian Blackwell from the shadows across the desk. Harold's voice broke through the silence. We let her think she's winning. The more confident she feels, the more evidence she gives us. When she makes her move, we'll be ready. And when he shows his hand, we'll catch him too. Ethan leaned back, his hands steepled, his jaw tight. The fury inside him was no longer wild. It was measured, sharpened into patience. He wasn't about to rush into a confrontation. That would only warn them. No, He would let them believe they were in control. He would let Madeline rehearse her role. Let Adrian count his future millions. And then, when the moment came, he would strip away the stage beneath their feet. Viewers, let me ask you something. If you were Ethan, if you had just discovered that 5 years of your marriage was nothing but a scheme, a performance staged for your destruction, would you confront her right now? Would you slam the evidence on the table? Demand answers. Watch her mask shatter, or would you let her walk deeper into the trap? Play out her act until the final curtain call. Because Ethan Crawford had already made his choice, he would play his role, quietly, patiently, while the noose tightened around both of them. And when the time came, he would not confront her with words. He would confront her with truth. Truth so heavy that not even her charm, not even her crocodile tears, could shield her from it. Madeline believed she had married a man too busy, too trusting, too blind to see. What she did not know was that Ethan had spent his whole life preparing for this very storm. She thought she was writing the next act of her dream life. In reality, she was rehearsing her downfall. When Ethan Crawford returned to his Nashville estate, the world looked exactly as it always had. The white columns of the mansion rose against the autumn sky, the driveway lined with golden leaves that crunched beneath the tires. And on the porch, framed by warm light spilling through the open door, stood Madeline. Her smile was radiant, her arms outstretched. To anyone watching, it would have seemed like the picture of devotion. A wife overjoyed at her husband's surprise return. She kissed his cheek, smoothed his sleeve, and whispered, "Welcome home. I missed you so much." But Ethan knew better. Behind every word, every touch, was performance. He had listened to her voice stripped of warmth. He had read the files that exposed her as a partner in fraud. To him, she was no longer a loving wife, but an actress stepping into her role. Unaware that the script was already unraveling, that evening, the house glowed with comfort. Candles flickered on the dining table. The scent of garlic and herbs filled the air, and Madeline served his favorite linguine with clam sauce. She laughed. She chattered. She touched his hand across the table. Every gesture was flawless. But Ethan saw only the shadow of her true self, the woman plotting to bleed him dry. With a single signature, when the plates were cleared, she disappeared briefly into another room. When she returned, a manila envelope rested in her hands. She slid it onto the table with the precision of a practiced move, her face painted with sorrow. "Ethan," she began, her voice trembling just enough to sound sincere. "I've been thinking a lot about us. We've grown apart. We've become different people. I don't want us to keep hurting each other. I think it's time we face reality." She nudged the envelope toward him. "These are divorce papers." Ethan's gaze never wavered. "Divorce papers," he repeated calmly, tasting the words as though they belonged to someone else. Her eyes glistened, a tissue already in her hand. "I don't enjoy this, but I think it's the best way. You're always working, always traveling. I feel like a stranger in my own home." She dabbed her eyes delicately. Her performance rehearsed down to the smallest detail. "I think it's time for a clean break. Sign these, and we can both move on." Ethan leaned back in his chair, hands folded loosely in his lap. "And what exactly are you asking for?" She drew a steady breath, her mask slipping into confidence. Half of everything. Tennessee law is clear. After 5 years of marriage, I deserve 50% of what we built together. Her words hung between them. What we built together. Ethan almost laughed at the audacity, but he kept his face unreadable. At last, he slid the envelope back toward her. His voice was quiet. Even, we'll meet in court. For the first time, the mask cracked. Shock flashed across her face before anger chased it away. Court, she hissed. Why would you want that? The fees? The publicity. It will ruin your reputation. I'm giving you a chance to end this quietly. Ethan stood, his movements deliberate. The clean way, he said, isn't on this table. Her composure faltered. Her eyes narrowed. Don't be stubborn. Ethan, if you fight me, I'll destroy you. I know things about your business practices, about the way you structure your accounts. The courts don't like men who hide assets. There it was. The blade she thought she held. Ethan looked at her calmly. Are you threatening me? I'm protecting myself. She snapped, her voice sharp as glass. He turned without another word, walking toward the stairs, and as he ascended, he heard it. The whisper she thought he couldn't catch. Her voice, low and furious, pressed into the phone. Victor, we have a problem. Havon't sin? Ethan didn't pause. He didn't flinch. He kept climbing, his face a mask of composure, because in truth, the performance was hers alone. And soon, the curtain would fall. The Davidson County Courthouse was electric that morning. Every seat in the gallery was filled. Reporters scribbling in notepads. Curious onlookers whispering. Attorneys leaning forward to watch what promised to be one of Nashville's most scandalous divorce cases in years. At the respondents' table, Ethan Crawford sat quietly, his dark suit immaculate, his face unreadable. Beside him, Harold Whitman turned the pages of a thick binder with the calm precision of a man who already knew the ending. Across the aisle, Madeline Crawford glowed with confidence. Her navy suit was tailored to perfection, pearls at her throat, her smile polished. She had rehearsed this moment with Victor Hale countless times, and today she was certain she would walk away the wealthiest woman in the room. Behind her, Victor lounged in the gallery, his smirk wide and self-assured. He expected to watch Ethan stripped of nearly $500 million before lunch. Judge Samuel Harper into gavel, striking. Once, the room fell silent. Case number 24-617. Madeline Crawford versus Ethan Crawford. Petition for dissolution of marriage and division of marital assets. The clerk read aloud. The judge turned to Madeline's attorney. Mr. Cole, you may proceed. Her lawyer rose, voice firm, words rehearsed. Your Honor, my client has endured 5 years of emotional neglect while her husband pursued his empire. Under Tennessee law, she is entitled to 50% of marital property. By our calculation, Mr. Crawford's holdings exceed $800 million. We ask the court to award Mrs. Crawford her rightful share, $400 million. The words sent a hum through the gallery. Madeline signed a financial declaration her attorney placed before her, sliding it across the table with a triumphant smile. For her, this was victory, sealed. Judge Harper shifted his gaze. Mr. Whitman, your response. Harold stood slowly, his tone calm, deliberate. Your Honor, my colleague paints a compelling picture, but not an accurate one. Nearly 2 years before this marriage, Mr. Crawford established an irrevocable trust. Into it went his construction company, his real estate portfolio, his investments. By law, these assets are not marital property. He set thick binders of notarized documents on the bench. As of today, Mr. Crawford's personal assets consist only of liquid funds totaling $50,480. Under statute, Mrs. Crawford is entitled to half, $25,240. The gallery erupted in gasps and whispers. Madeline's confident smile faltered, her hands tightening on the edge of the table. Judge Harper flipped through the filings, eyes sharp, then looked up. The trust is valid. The court rules that all trust assets are excluded. Mrs. Crawford's award is limited to half of her husband's liquid holdings, $25,240. The gavel came down lightly. Madeline shot to her feet, her face burning red. No, this is a trick. He's worth hundreds of millions. He hid it all in that trust to cheat me. Sit down. Mrs. Crawford. The judge ordered. The ruling stands. Her legs buckled as she sank back into her chair. Victor's smirk wavered for the first time, but Harold wasn't finished. He turned back to the bench. Your Honor, while the civil matter is now resolved, there is another matter before the court. 5 days ago, I referred evidence to federal authorities, evidence of conspiracy and interstate fraud involving Mrs. Crawford and a man seated in the gallery, known here as Victor Hale. The doors at the back of the courtroom opened. 2 men in dark suits entered, badges gleaming at their belts. Special Agent Richard Kane, Federal Bureau of Investigation. One of them announced, by order of the U.S. District Court, we have arrest warrants for Madeline Crawford and Adrian Blackwell, also known as Victor Hale, on charges of wire fraud, conspiracy, and attempted fraud upon this court. The gallery gasped again. Madeline froze, eyes wide, her voice breaking. This isn't real. You can't. But the agents were already at her side, snapping handcuffs around her wrists as she sobbed. Victor tried to rise quietly, but the second agent intercepted him, cuffs clicking shut. His smirk collapsed into a glare of pure hatred. His eyes locked on Ethan. Judge Harper struck his gavel hard. Order! This courtroom will not be used as a stage for fraud. The divorce settlement is concluded. The criminal charges rest with federal authorities. Reporters scribbled furiously as the agents led Madeline and Victor away in chains. The once perfect image of a devoted wife was shattered, revealed for what it truly was. A shame, a performance, and now a downfall. And through it all, Ethan Crawford sat in silence. His empire safe, his enemies exposed, his face as steady as stone. 2 months later, the heavy oak doors of the federal courtroom creaked open. Chains rattled as marshals led Madeline Crawford and Adrian Blackwell to the defense table. Gone were the designer suits and polished smiles. Both wore khaki prison uniforms, wrists shackled, faces pale under the unforgiving light. The clerk's voice rang clear. United States versus Madeline Crawford and Adrian Blackwell. Sentencing hearing. The prosecutor's words were steady, sharp. She laid out the evidence once more. The recordings, the financial trails, the ruined families left behind. This was not a crime of passion. She said, it was a business of betrayal, and it leaves scars that money alone cannot heal. When asked to speak, Adrian leaned forward with a smirk. His voice dripped with arrogance. You can lock me up, but you'll never erase me. There's always someone willing to play the game. The gallery murmured in disgust. Madeline's turn came next. Her shoulders sagged. Her voice cracked with sobs. I thought I was in love. Y made terrible mistakes. Please, I ask for mercy. The judge's gaze was cold. M's. Trafford. The recordings showed calculation, not confusion. You were no victim. You were a partner in crime. For that, you will serve 12 years in federal prison, followed by supervised release. Her knees buckled as marshals held her steady. The judge turned to Adrian. Mr. Blackwell, you cultivated false identities, used women as pawns, and exploited the courts for nearly a decade. You are a predator, not a partner. You will serve 25 years in federal prison, without parole. The gavel struck final and sharp as the convicts were led away. Ethan sat still, breathing deeply for the first time in months. His empire was safe. The betrayal had been dragged into the light, and the predators who thought they could script his ruin were now written into their own downfall. Betrayal can cut deeper than any blade, but justice, sooner or later, finds its way. Viewers, if you were Ethan, would you have played it cold or sought revenge another way? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more true-to-life stories of betrayal and justice.